Hi, clarinet players. I'm here to help you with putting your instrument together and where to put your fingers in this video. So that's what I will be going over with you. As you can see, my clarinet is already assembled, it's already put together. So we're going to go through the names of the different parts and pieces, and I'm going to actually take it apart for you and then put it back together just to show you both ways of doing that, because you need to be good at doing both of those things when you put it away or when you build it. So basically, we're going to start with the whole clarinet from the bottom to the top. So the bottom, the very bottom piece of your clarinet is called your bell. And that's, of course, where your bell cover is going to go over whenever we're playing in band class. So your bell is that bottom piece of your clarinet. And then right above that, the bigger of the two big pieces in your clarinet case, this is the lower joint of your clarinet. And this is the one that has the thumb rest on the back. So your bell gets connected to the lower joint, and then that's where your thumb is actually going to rest on the back of your clarinet. So your thumb rest always is going to be facing you. Keys are always going to be facing away from you. The next piece that we're going to assemble is the upper joint of our clarinet, and that is going to be for your left hand when you're playing and holding your clarinet. And on the back of that is a key for your thumb. So the round key with the hole is where your left hand thumb is always going to hang out. So the back of your clarinet should look like that when you've got those three main pieces assembled. And on the front should be all the keys, and all of your keys are going to make a big straight line all the way down to the bottom of your clarinet. The careful thing that you need to do when you're building your clarinet is you're going to want to notice there's these two posts that fit together, and they actually, it's part of your key mechanism on your clarinet. And when you're lining up these posts, you always want to make sure that they're in line with each other. If you keep turning and turning and turning your clarinet, those are actually going to get stuck under your other keys. And I have seen keys pop off, break, mega repairs on your clarinet. So you always want to be careful to kind of watch how you're lining your clarinet up, and I'll show you that too when I'm taking it apart and putting it together again for you in this video. But just something to be aware of when you're building your clarinet, to watch out for those posts and make sure they're not getting caught on one of those keys. You notice your clarinet's getting stuck when you're putting pieces together, stop what you're doing. You can ask me for help, or just kind of take it back apart again, line it all up, give it a twist, make sure it's all lined up, and then you won't run into those problems. Okay? Connected to the top joint of your clarinet, the part that doesn't have any keys, is the barrel of your clarinet, and that's the connector that connects your mouthpiece to your upper joint of your clarinet. So the barrel attaches to the upper joint of your clarinet, and then of course your mouthpiece is the part that you blow through. You'll notice too, this is the front of my clarinet facing you, and the solid part of my mouthpiece is facing away from me. That's because the reed of my clarinet needs to be facing me when I play it, so that when I put it in my mouth, the reed is sitting against my bottom lip. So you don't want it against your top teeth or at the top of your mouth. You want to make sure that the reed is always resting on your bottom lip, so your reed is always going to be facing you. So when you put it in your mouth, the reed is going to be resting on that little cushion that you're creating with your bottom lip, and that's always going to be facing towards you when you're holding it, okay? The metal piece on your clarinet that has the two screws on it is called your ligature, and your ligature is very important because that's what's going to hold the reed onto your clarinet. So your ligature's job is to hold the reed onto your clarinet so that that's not going to fall off while you're playing. It's going to help to hold it in place. Okay, so basically I am going to take all of these pieces apart for you and show you kind of the right way of doing that, and then we're going to build it up again afterwards. So I'm going to start when I take my clarinet apart. I'm doing this backwards for you. So I'm going to undo the screws on my ligature until it's loose, and then I'm going to take that, carefully lift that off of my mouthpiece so I don't touch the edge of my reed on there, and I'm going to put that in my case or off to the side. Then I'm going to take my reed. So my reed is going to be wet from me playing it, so I'm just going to kind of give it a wipe on the back of my hand, or kind of wipe it carefully on my pants. But you always want to make sure you can see how thin that reed is when you're looking at it sideways. So it's very fragile. It's not going to last forever. you never want to touch the tip of your reed. You never want to be grabbing it or, trying to line it up with the top of your reed. That's very, very fragile, and you always need to be careful in protecting your reed so that it lasts you for a long time. These are expensive. A box of reeds is probably about $35 now for 10 reeds. So you always want to be very careful with your reeds, and that way they're going to last you for a little while so that you don't just have to throw them away every time they break. Okay, once this is broken, it's garbage. You're not going to be able to save it. It's not going to work properly on your clarinet. If the edge is chipped or broken or bent, or if it gets warped and kind of wavy looking, your reed is no good. And I'm going to ask you to throw it in the garbage, take a brand new reed, and then just be careful with it so it lasts you for a long time. Once your reed is, you can kind of get all of the big chunks of spit off of there, then you're going to take your reed case. This is what your reed will come in when you get it from the store in a box. And there's the flat side of the reed that has the writing on it is going to go against the flat side of the case. Usually there's a little stamp on it or a logo or something on there. But basically you're going to hold your reed case flat the same direction as your reed. So flat side is facing down. And then I'm just going to very carefully line my reed up there and just push it in just far enough so that it's just even with the edge of my case. You never want to shove this super far inside of your reed case because it will get stuck in there. Then it's really tough to get out again. So you just want to push it just far enough into your case so then next time you go to use it, you can just grab the end of it and pull it straight out and then pop it in your mouth, get it ready to play. So the flat side of your case lines up with the flat side of your reed, and you want to just slide it in there very gently. Don't kind of catch it on the corners because it'll break, and just slide it far enough into your case so that it's just far enough there so that you can still grab it next time you need to play it. So the reed is back in its home, right? This is where it needs to stay when it's in your case. You always need to put it away every time that you play. That's the reed. Now I'm going to start taking my clarinet pieces apart. So this is my mouthpiece. I'm going to grab around the barrel and I'm going to twist my mouthpiece off. So this has got the cork there to connect it together. And if your cork is a little bit sticky or stiff, it might take a little bit of work to get that off of there. You can always try and put a little bit of cork grease around your cork. And that will help to kind of like grease it up a little bit so it's a little bit easier to take apart. So mouthpiece I'm going to put into my case. And then my barrel joint, I'm going to grab kind of right around the top of the top joint of my clarinet where there aren't a lot of keys, right? You always want to grab where there's the least amount of keys or no keys, and you can kind of grab there with your hand around those keys. Grab your barrel joint with your other hand, carefully twist those pieces apart, put your barrel back in your case. Now, same place I'm holding with my top hand where I just took off the barrel joint. Now I'm going to separate the big parts of my clarinet. So I'm going to hold up at the top where there are the least amount of keys, and I'm going to hold down on my lower joint right around that bottom part before the bell starts because there's not a lot of stuff to squish there. So I'm going to grab there with my other hand. So one hand's up high, one hand's down low, and I'm going to carefully twist those pieces apart, being careful of those little posts and make sure they don't get caught. I'm going to put my upper joint in my case. And then I'm going to keep holding that bottom of that lower joint with my one hand. And I'm going to grab the bell with my other hand and carefully twist those pieces apart and put those pieces back in my case. When you're putting your pieces in your case, they only fit one way. Just like when you're putting your clarinet together, the pieces only fit together one way. It's kind of like a little bit of a puzzle the first few times that you do it. But the more you practice that, the easier it's going to get, and you're going to be able to just pop things back to where they need to go. If you try to close your case and something's not fitting right or it's not closing, never force your case closed. Something's not in the right place. You might have to open it up, check how everything's lined up. You might have to flip something around and fix it. Okay. When I'm building my clarinet, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my reed out of my case. I'm going to carefully grab that, slide that very carefully out of my reed case, put my reed case back into my instrument case, pop this in your mouth. So first thing you need to do is you need to wet your reed. A dry reed does not work on your clarinet. So the first thing you should do is pop that into your mouth, and then you're going to be ready to go when your clarinet is assembled. You can pop the reed on last, and then you're ready to play. I'm not going to talk to you with the reed in my mouth right now, so I'm just going to put this off to the side, but you would still have this in your mouth, get some spit in your mouth, wet your reed, and then you're going to be ready to play when you have to assemble that. So I'm just going to put that aside for now. I'm going to start from the bottom of my clarinet. I'm going to start with my bell. So I'm going to grab the bell of my clarinet, and I'm going to look for the piece that has the thumb rest on it. That's my lower joint. And I'm going to carefully grab where there are the least amount of keys and twist those two pieces together. And then I'm going to take the upper joint of my clarinet. I'm going to hold close to the bottom, hold close to the top of my top joint where there's not a lot of keys. And I'm going to watch for where those little posts are on the side and try to keep your keys lined up when you're putting your pieces together. So you're just going to kind of wiggle those pieces together. Oops, there we go. Okay. And like I said, if they're tough to get together, you can put a little bit of cork grease around your cork, and then that'll make it a little bit easier to move on there as well. Okay, so you're going to try to line up those little posts right under this little cluster of keys on the side. You always want to make sure that those posts make a nice straight line on your clarinet. And that's going to make sure that now when I press those keys, they're going to move freely. When I start using the bottom keys on my clarinet, you can see how that whole mechanism moves. So it's important for those to be connected to each other when you're building. One way that you can double check too is if you actually press the keys down on the top of your clarinet while you're putting those pieces together, that's going to cause that piece to open. So it's not going to get stuck on things when you're lining stuff up. So you're going to put those, if you want to press the top keys of your clarinet down, kind of do those final little adjustments, then that's going to help those posts to line up on the side of your clarinet without getting hooked onto another key and breaking. Okay, so now if I look at my clarinet, my keys and my rings are all in a nice straight line all the way from the top to the bottom, so I know I've got everything facing the right way. On top of that, now I'm going to put my barrel joint. You'll notice too, one side is a little bit bigger than the other side. It's hard to tell in the video, but when you look at it, you'll notice that. And this only fits onto your clarinet one way. If I tried to build it upside down, it's not going to fit. So I just have to flip it around. I'm going to hold up at the top of my clarinet here and twist that barrel joint onto my clarinet as far as it'll go. Be careful not to pinch your finger in there as well.